All right, so it's 1 o'clock, so I will go ahead and get started here. I'm J. Michael Morelli from ON1. I'm coming to you here with this beginner's webinar for ON1 Photo RAW 2018.5. I have with me another educator here, Dylan Kotecki. He will be doing the Q&A questions throughout. There is a Q&A module there on your screen if you do have a question on anything, or if you need me to go back and show something over again, feel free, feel free to use that module as much as you want. Dylan, go ahead and say hi so I know the audio is working fine.
Hey everybody, this is Dylan. Yeah, like Mo said, if you have a question, feel free to hit up that Q&A module, and if it's really pertinent to what Mo's doing, I'll stop him and he can answer it for you guys.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Dylan. So I'm actually going to launch a poll here for you guys to just a few quick questions so I can kind of gauge where you guys are at with ON1 Photo RAW, where you're at with photo editing. So while I'm kind of going through the administrative stuff right here at the beginning, go ahead and answer the questions in that poll. That'll kind of help me shape which way we take this webinar. So like I said at the beginning, this is a beginner's webinar for ON1 Photo RAW 2018.5. I'm really excited to give you guys a tour of all the different modules, all the different tools. This is going to be very beginner level stuff. I'm not going to get into too much advanced editing, but we will cover what most of these tools do. Further to that, like I said, if you have questions, ask Dylan in the Q&A module. This is being recorded and will be posted up on our blog and our YouTube channel after this. So if you have to duck out or leave at any time, feel free to do so. This will be posted today, this afternoon. So I'll go ahead and dive right in. For those of you who don't know ON1 Photo RAW, ON1 Photo RAW combines the simplicity of a browser with the power of a RAW processor and a professional grade effects engine, all in a layered, non-destructive workflow. You can see right here, I'm actually in my browse module. I can navigate quickly to my different folders, drives that are on my computer. You can see here, I can just easily navigate throughout my machine to find photos that are on my computer. I can even get to connected storage cloud drives like Dropbox or Google Drive, OneDrive, any kind of external hard drives that you have connected. ON1 Photo RAW will find these immediately. There's no importing that I've done. Nothing has been imported into this app. This is all just on my computer or in my Dropbox cloud storage. So you can see here in the browse module, I get a quick view of exactly what my photos look like. I don't have to wait for these. I can even look at these in many different view modes, like a full screen or a film strip view, just by hitting F on my keyboard. And you guys can't see me doing this on the screen, but if I hold down the key on my keyboard, I can navigate through this film strip view as fast as I want to move through, as fast as I want to look for my images. One thing I prefer to do in this film strip view in the browse module, when I've actually navigated to a folder I want to start editing, is I actually use this film strip view to rate and tag and add different organizational properties to my photos. You can kind of see here, there's the 1 star and then this red tag to it. I can easily just click to change the ratings on here on the thumbnail or to change the color of this flag, but I can also do that with my keyboard. And this is how I prefer to edit. I just like to go through and click on a few stars, maybe 5-star a few images, or 4-star some images that I still maybe want to edit, but I don't think they're all the way there. And I might just 1-star anything that I want to knock out. And that's just hitting the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 key on my keyboard in the film strip view here. I can even go back to a few of these photos, and if I hit 6 or 7, actually, sorry, let me back up and turn off this, turn off my auto advance so you can actually see what's happening here. So when I click on my keyboard, whether it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, it's going to add that rating. Also to that, if I add a 6, a 7, an 8, a 9, or a 0, it's going to change the color. So this is very good to help you kind of narrow down a folder by scene or by model. If there's a couple different models and you want to just kind of organize another extra step, this is great for that. And again, that was just hitting my 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0 key on my keyboard. And then I also have the P key will give me this heart for a pick, similar to how Lightroom works. And for those of you who just saw that, up in the photos dropdown, I had auto advance turned on. This is another feature that I like to turn on, and this helps me mainly in the browse module, just jump through. And basically what it does is as I add a rating, I'll just keep adding 1-star ratings to these photos so that you can see as I add a 1-star to it, it's just going to jump me to the next photo as I make that rating. So it's an easy way for me to kind of go through a series of photos and pick which ones I like the most out of that series. I can easily go back and, you know, maybe choose a 1-star. I don't like this one as much as I like that one there. You know, so just some very easy, quick organizational properties. Here in my film strip view in Browse, if I hit the G key on my keyboard, it'll take me right back to my grid view. And those of you who were here before the webinar kicked off, you probably saw me do a quick shift click. You know, and I actually rated a bunch of these photos very quickly with a 1-star rating before this webinar got started. I can do that just by adding a 5 or, you know, just by hitting a 4 on my keyboard, or even change the scene with an 8 or a 9 on my keyboard and change that color tag. I can do all of that right here in Browse. So it's a very easy way for you to navigate through, to organize, to you know, just find your best photos in a series. So moving along here in our Browse module, you can see at the top, I can easily get back just by my breadcrumbs on the top to my different folders that I've navigated to over here on the left side. So I'll just jump here into a different folder, this portrait one, to show you some of the different view modes that we have inside of Browse. Now, remember, I'm still in Browse. I haven't left Browse at all. I'm just navigating to the different images that are on my machine. And one style of photography that I like to do a lot is senior portraits, you know, shooting models and portraits, you know, high school senior stuff like that. And I often find myself having to narrow it down between a lot of the same shot. So as I was just showing you in the last folder, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to tag these all with a red color tag so that I know I can find these very easily, because I like how this brick wall is making my model pop out. But now I kind of want to narrow these down into, you know, something better, or the best one of these. And I could use my film strip view like I was showing you with the F key here, but what I prefer to do when it's a model is actually choose a few different photos, or a few similar photos rather, and come down to our compare view right here. And what compare view will do is allow you to navigate across the face, across certain parts of the image. As long as you have this lock, pan, and zoom selected here, I can navigate any part of this image I want to look at and, you know, easily find the best image that I shot out on this, this location and give it a 5 stars. Further to that, in here, I can hit my slash key on my keyboard and knock out the images that I know I don't like in this series and kind of find which one of these images has the best, you know, face, the best exposure, the best kind of composition to give to my client. And I kind of like this one here. I might just keep narrowing this down until I get to a final 2. And I'll just choose both of those with 5 stars so that I know where to get them. And I might even give them both a pick so I know I can find them easier. And why I'm doing this, this tagging and this rating with the color tags and the stars and the hearts is so that I can go back and find these images faster, and so that I can deliver these to a client faster. So I'm gonna hit my G key and go back to my grid view. And if I come over here to filters, I can now sort, or filter rather, this entire folder by just my, you know, red tagged images, or just my red tagged with 5 stars. You know, maybe you want to not use the filters pane. You can also do that with the sort option down here. And I can't actually see that because of this, this dashboard is kind of in my way, but there is a sort option down there. Let me see if I can pull that out real fast to show you. So yeah, right here, these sort options, you can change that to file rating, one that I choose. Let me go back to full screen after we get this off. Give me one moment here, guys. I'm actually going to, my dock at the bottom of the screen is bothering me, so I'm going to move that out of the way. There we go. All right, so let me jump that back to full screen there. Hopefully that didn't take away anything for you guys. So let me jump back and come to my grid view rather, and let me turn this down. So this is your thumbnail view size also in Browse. So if you just want to change just quickly by dragging here, I can, easily change whether I'm viewing a bigger size image or small thumbnails. Just an easier way that you can navigate through a folder. As you can see here, there's some certain shots and certain scenes. So, what I might do, just like I was saying, I'll just come in and tag certain scenes with certain color tags so that I know I can find these easier based on location or even based on model. So just some quick tips in the Browse module. But what you can also do in the filters panel over here is if you do have cataloged folders, which catalog folders just, if you do have questions on that, feel free to ask Dylan in the Q&A module. Essentially, like I said, nothing is imported. These cataloged folders are thumbnail previews of your images that allow you to do all these organizational culling processes a lot faster. But what you can do with those in filters is no matter where I am in Photo RAW looking at my hard drive or cloud storage, I can come down to this filters area and I can just search any series of photos I want to find. So in this case, I know I've done this before. I'm going to search Oregon Coast. We're in Oregon. We have a lot of photos of the Oregon Coast to look at. So I can easily come to my filters area, type in Oregon Coast, and I can find all of my Oregon Coast photos here. Now, this is actually looking off of the metadata panel over here on the right side. It's looking at the folder name, the photo name. It's looking at any keywords that you've added. You can even search by lens type or even date and time. So what we're going to do here is I'm actually going to narrow down my Oregon Coast photos, and I'm going to search for all of the photos that I shot in the morning. So I'll come down to the filters panel, advanced options, time of day, and I will just choose morning there. And you'll see that'll narrow it down to my photos that were shot in the morning. So it's just a very easy way to navigate, to find your photos. You can add as many keywords as you want as you move along. Maybe I just will add beach to this photo as I'm just, doing my editing. See, there's some keywords that were added over here as well. But this metadata allows me, and these keywords allow me to go into this filters panel and find my images better, faster. And same with this albums panel over here on the left. This is essentially acting like the filters panel does here, but it's, I'm not going to get into this too much. It's pretty straightforward what these albums do. You can set them up based on different criteria. To find all your 5-starred images, as you 5-star images throughout your editing process, this will just get updated and all your 5-star images will continue to add to this smart album here. We also have tethered shooting. So any studio shooters out there who are doing tethered shooting, we have all of that, works with majority of the cameras out there. And so that's the overall basics of the Browse module, but there's one extra step or one extra feature that we have that I actually use quite a bit when I'm coming from a shoot.
Here, Mo, can I stop you just real quick, Mo?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, man, so we have a few people asking how to batch rename just files in Browse. Do you want to just show that real quick?
Yeah, definitely. Let me go up here to the folder, and rather than Dropbox, let me go to... Let's do, I think there's some ukulele ones I like to do. So there's a couple ways that you can do batch renaming. I prefer to do that actually on the import myself, or you can use folders, for example, just to kind of sort and organize these better. One example would be rather than using these color tags, you can actually shift click a few images and then right click on them, and you can actually add a subfolder. And let's just make this Bella Smith folder. We can move those items into the folder, which is usually what I do. This is normally how I kind of cull down is use folders, and it should actually go to the top now because we are on sending. So there's that folder. So for a batch rename, you can rename those files here just by right clicking. Same thing I did when I moved them to a folder. Like I said, what I usually do is I cull this down. Just so I'll come in here and I will add a subfolder, and I'll just say Bella1. And so I'll just keep doing that as I move through. I'll come into this folder now, and then what I'll do is I'll rename them all just by right clicking, rename files. You can do this right back in the grid view. I just prefer to go a little more organized myself. So I'll just keep them as, let's actually change the name, text to new Bella. And I think we can actually add a serial number 1, and we'll just apply that there. So it should, yeah, so you can rename them very easily, add serial numbers. Like I said, I do most of this on my import, and then I kind of narrow it down afterward. Does that kind of help, Dylan?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Cool, awesome.
Also,
so,
if you want to, yeah, when you do the import too, maybe just show them real quick how they can do that. That'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to do right now.
Awesome.
So,
sorry, man. Sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah, no worries at all. So yeah, for those of you who are just joining us here, there is a Q&A panel. Feel free to ask any question to Dylan there. He can answer them right away, or throw it up to me and I can show you guys again how to do it on the screen here. So yeah, feel free to use that as we go through. So the import feature is just under File, Import. And it doesn't look like I have I don't think I actually have a external hard drive connected, do I? Or any kind of, let's just see if any of these work here. I think I might have, let's see if we can open that there. Oops, that's not mine. All right, well, maybe we can open this one here. There we go. So sorry about this. This isn't actually my, oops, that's the destination. Let me choose the actual source here. So here we go. Let's use Gary Horton right here. So the import module, you basically can choose, this is what I use when I'm pulling images off of my phone or off of my camera. I just plug in my memory card to my computer, or just plug in my camera to my computer, and you can easily find that right under source up here at the top. You can see at the beginning I was messing over in the wrong location for destination here. You can actually change very easily where that's going to be. I usually choose a new folder, or I make a new folder as I'm gonna do this just right here. You can see how you can change that. So what this import feature is doing is it's taking your photos off of your camera or your phone or your external hard drive or pretty much anywhere on your computer. It's just going to place them from one area to another, essentially a copy or a download from a camera card. It's not actually importing anything into ON1, which is fine because ON1 doesn't need anything imported. It's going to read everything directly off the computer. So even though this is called import, it's not importing into ON1. It's just downloading or copying to a folder of your choosing on the computer. So I'll move through here. I have some real estate images I think that Dylan shot of Gary Horton's home. And so what I can do is I can just make a new folder here, a new location for that. I could add a backup. I could rename them as Dylan was saying before, and maybe I'll change these to Gary House, and then I'll add a serial number. This is normally how I work, is I just find the subject, the house, or the location, add a serial number so I know where I started, where I finished. And then more importantly, what I do though is I add metadata. And these keywords that I add are going to be, for me at least, the most important part of taking the images off of my camera or my phone. I'm just gonna add simple keywords. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, but I'm gonna keep them very broad based on what my shoot was, so that I can easily get back using that filters panel to find these photos that I want to edit. You can even add some different photo settings or different presets that you might have made. You can edit the capture date. I never play with this too much, but I do frequently add different presets as I'm importing. I know sometimes if you're shooting with a ring light, you can get kind of a color cast. Adding a quick preset with like a correction is a great way to fix that without having to touch any of the photos. Just another little trick in there inside of the import module. So once I hit import, these are going to get copied to my computer. I'm going to be able to find these just by searching Gary Horton's name or by searching real estate. So that's the import basics. I'm not going to actually do that because I think you guys understand that based on some of these poll results I'm looking at here. So I'll pause for a moment. Dylan, are there any questions on anything I can cover other than renaming?
No, not at the time. I feel like we're getting the Q&A I'm getting it pretty answered up right here as far as the private questions go. No, you doing great, man. Keep going.
Awesome, awesome. So it looks like there's a few of you. This is your first ON1 webinar. So we do these webinars every week. Some of these are very general beginner webinars just for getting started and to help you get going. Some of them are a little more directed at specific photography types. So feel free to go to our website, on1.com/webinars, and you can sign up for any webinars. They're free to sign up for. Dylan and myself and some other gurus all jump in and do webinars from time to time. So feel free to check that out. This is being recorded, so you can easily watch this if you need to duck out at any time. And there is the Q&A module there. Feel free to use that throughout the webinar. So it looks like a lot of you are landscape photographers based on the poll results here. And just taking a look here, quick gander at something. And so it looks like we have a lot of novices to the photo editing world. So I will just start jumping into some of the raw processing photo corrections in our develop module. We're pretty much done with browse, so if you do want me to show something on that, just feel free to ask Dylan and I can show you that again. Let me jump over into the correct photos. We'll go to develop. And so what I'm going to do is choose a photo in browse here, and I'm going to come over to the develop module here. So the develop module is where I'm going to do my basic raw corrections. This is where I'm going to adjust for any problem spots in my photo. Let me reset this to make sure I'm not, I think I might have edited this just a tad, it looks like. But anyway, so if I hit my tab key on my keyboard, it can actually get rid of these drawers on my right side, but I don't want that here in develop because I want to actually go through and edit this a little bit. So in develop, this is where you're going to do your raw processing and your basic photo adjustments, fix any dark spots, fix any kind of dust spots that you can see up there, and just get this in a better place to make it more stylized. And the way I like to do or edit through the develop module is I like to just move top to bottom. So I'm going to start out with the exposure slider here, and I hope you guys can see how fast this moves when I drag this slider back and forth. It gives me a real-time preview of exactly what that's going to look like when it's a full stop down, which I'm actually going to keep it just about here because I'm going to bring back some of the darkness up front, and I really want to have some detail in the sky up here because it's really cool and dramatic. So I'm going to tone that back a little bit. I'm not really going to play with the contrast too much, so if you do get to a spot that you don't really like, you can easily double click on the name of the tool you're using and it'll get you back to that starting point. But what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to bring back the highlights and I'm going to open up these shadows and these midtones until I get it to a spot that I really like. And I'm just going to go to about there, and kind of the next step, what I like to do after I bring those shadows back is find a black point and make sure I'm not clipping. So if you hit the J on your keyboard and you, let's see if I can make some of these highlights come, there you go. You can see without this highlight slider doing its work, we have some clipping up here. And similarly, if I were to bring my black point back, you can see it shows up in blue. And I'm just holding down my J key as I'm editing to kind of find a spot in the front where there's a little bit of that pure black, but not too much. And I think I might crop that that front part anyway. So I'm going to bring it back in the mids a little bit. But same with the whites, you know, we don't want to have any clipping spots in our photo. So I'm going to bring that to where it's, you know, as minimal as possible, to where there's maybe just like 1 or 2 little dots on the white, and similar with the blacks here. And so if I take my hand off the J key or finger off the J key, it will get rid of those points for me. But it's a very handy tool to kind of give you some, you know, some tonal contrast throughout the photo. Something I use quite a bit, at least. We also have a haze reduction and structure slider. So if you do have a hazy photo, this is a great slider for that. Also white balance dropper and just basic color and tint corrections here. I use this quite a bit too. You know, especially out here in Oregon, shooting in the forest a lot, we get a lot of green images or models with green skin. So, you know, just adjusting that tint back a little bit or warming the photo up a little bit helps a lot. But we also have this eyedropper here, which will allow me to find a midpoint in my white balance. You can see right here, this is my white balance. If I were to scroll over these, it's going to actually change the white balance to what it would have looked like, you know, set in the camera. But what I prefer to do is actually come to this dropper and find a midpoint, or a white point rather. That's, you know, like a gray, like, I might zoom in just a tad to find a better gray here. So I'm going to choose my eyedropper again, and I'm just going to choose this grayish white there. And it's just going to change the overall white balance of my photo. And then if I need to tweak that just a little bit more, I might warm it up a tad bit more. I can do that right from there. So further to that, if you want to reduce some of the saturation, I know Dylan likes to do this quite a bit just so things don't look overblown. You can go the other way with it and add a lot of saturation, but you know, this saturation slider is very, very good for you know, making sure that your images don't get too blown out if you go this way with it, or to give it a nice little glowy effect if you go just a little bit higher on the vibrance and the saturation. But I don't use that too much myself. It is there, it's right and develop, and as you can see, as I move through it, it's real time. It's showing me exactly what's happening. I'm not waiting on anything to load. As I drag this back and forth, it's going to show me exactly what's happening to my photo. So let me just move on here. We also have a details pane. I'm not going to spend any time on this. This is more advanced sharpening, noise reduction, color noise reduction type of stuff. But if you're into that, that is there. Same with lens corrections. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This is going to automatically detect your lens. It's going to correct for any peripheral distortion or fall off, any chromatic aberrations that might occur. So you can see here's with it off, here's with it on. So it's just I just leave it on and let it do its thing. I don't really mess with this at all. But if you do want to get more advanced, I think we actually do have a webinar coming up on some of the more advanced features in develop and effects that you could sign up for. So that's the basics of our overall settings over here. Now you might be saying to yourself, okay, what are all these tools over here on the left going to do for me? So one thing that I like to do is hit my tab key so that I get a more full screen view of my photo when I'm actually going to dive in and start getting a little more hands-on, not just doing those global overall corrections. First thing I'll probably do is crop and level. So I'm just going to choose the crop tool up here, and right at the top, let me pull this Zoom conference thing out the way. Right at the top, we have a level tool, and you can just quickly drag that across the horizon line. Whoops, I missed it by just a pixel or two there, so I might have to do this a second time. But yeah, you can drag this across the horizon line, get it straight. Any straight lines, doesn't have to be a horizon, anything you want to straighten it to. The level tool is a great option to use for that. And you can keep cropping. I might actually crop just to get rid of this front spot here a little bit. And where do I want to stop at? Actually might not do that just yet. I might wait on the crop, see what I can do over on this left side first. So now these dust spots here, actually, I'm just going to go ahead and do that crop real fast. Why not? Let's bring that in. Let's actually keep the sky and let's bring it in the other way here. Something like that. Actually, I might just bring up the front. I kind of like how this is going wide. So let's keep it like that. And now I'm going to get rid of these dust spots here. I'm going to use my retouching tools. We have 3 different retouching tools that you can access in the develop module. There's more in the effects module, and there's even more in the layers module. We'll get to those in a second. The develop module, this is where you're going to do those basic corrections. So in this case, I'm going to use the retouch brush here to get rid of this dust spot right here. And I'm just going to drag and drop right, or click and drag right over those dust spots there. And this is acting kind of like a smudge tool. It's a retouch brush. It's you know, a smudge tool. It's great for portraits, retouching blemishes on skin or wrinkles on face. I use it a lot for dust on the lens. What I frequently go to though as well is our perfect eraser tool, which this is going to actually be a better tool for getting rid of power lines, for getting rid of stumps or trees or birds in the sky, for example, that you want to get rid of. In this case, I'm going to use the eraser tool, which you can see right here. I'm just going to brush out this puddle right here. And rather than being a smudge like our retouch brush is, this is going to be a content aware fill tool. So all I have to do is brush over what I want to get rid of, and it's going to fill that in with similar pixels. And you would never know that that was there. I mean, I don't know that that was ever there, but I like to get rid of stuff like that that's kind of distracting from the elements of the photos. If I don't like what that did, I can just Command or Control Z to step back, and you can see it brought that right back. But I'm going to take that out again because it's a little, I don't really like the reflection on that. So I'll just brush over that one more time. And again, content aware fill. I've actually used this eraser tool quite a bit for just getting rid of people on the beach, birds in the sky. In an exact scene like this, you know, if there was a couple birds flying around, this tool would be fantastic at getting rid of them. Same with power lines. Just a little tidbit there. There's also this clone stamp tool. So any of you who are coming from Photoshop, this is just a clone stamp like Photoshop has. It's really no different. It's going to allow you to select a targeted area, and I'll make my brush really big. I'm changing my brush size with the bracket keys on my keyboard. So if anyone's wondering how I'm doing that there. So I'm going to choose the Option key on my keyboard to set a target point with the clone stamp. And once I let go of my Option key and come down here, if I were to start brushing in, I don't really want to, but it's going to brush in down here what my target point up here was. So like I said, that's a more advanced feature. I won't spend too much time on the clone stamp. That's the gist of what it does. More of what I like to do is use that eraser tool, you know, clean up distracting elements. I don't use the clone stamp all too much. But one other tool that I do use quite a bit in the develop module is these local adjustment gradients and brushes. You're going to see me go to these quite a bit throughout the webinar. I use these quite a bit in effects and in layers. But these brushes and gradients up here are local adjustments. And rather than being an overall setting that affects the whole photo, what these local adjustments do is it gives me targeted adjustments of my choosing. Just like with these overall settings, I can actually target specific adjustments in specific areas. So I'm going to start out just by doing a darkening on the sky. It kind of lightened up from where I wanted to be from the beginning. So I'm going to choose my gradient mask here, or my gradient tool here rather. And I'm just going to click, and you can see that that just darkened everything that's on the top of this. I can flip this around if I wanted to. I can adjust the feather size of how that blends in with the middle there on both sides. So I have a lot of flexibility as to what I can do with this. And for those of you who are, you know, advanced into photo editing, you can see my mask right up here. If I click into this, I have some even more advanced masking options. But like I said, this is a beginner's webinar. We're not going to spend any time on the advanced stuff here. That is there. There's more training on that on our website if you want to get into that. But what I want to do with this adjustment layer is I just want to get that sky to be a little more dramatic. You know, I might even warm it up just a tad here, and maybe not that much, maybe just a little touch of warmth there, just to kind of give it that dramatic sun ray feel here, or sun glowy feel, kind of golden hour type of look to it. I can even rename that layer if I'm going to keep adding, you know, different adjustment layers as I go through. I can add as many as I want to right in here that do various things. You know, so if I wanted to even just brush this layer in, you know, not just use this gradient tool here, but also use my brush tool, I can just choose my brush tool. And as long as I'm set to paint in at the top up here, I can brush in that exact adjustment that I'm using with that gradient tool. You know, this doesn't look as good down here because we kind of want that feathering. So I can come in and undo that just by going to my paint out option. And I can just paint that out real quickly there. Sorry, I'm on a, I'm not using a Wacom tablet. I'm using a mouse. So my masking is a little sloppy today. But you can see there, with this brush, I can get even more targeted on that mask. Rather than just using the gradient mask, which is kind of where I get started, I can use this brush to refine that further. So let me actually make it look a little better, not as, not as fake here. Turn that down just a tad. And I'm just going to brush that in there. I'm going to keep that off the water, but I do want that kind of on this island across the way. And while I'm here, I'll just go ahead and add another layer for you guys. And let's maybe make this layer. We have a bunch of different options, I should mention. I use this quite a bit for portraits, the Magic Eye Fixer and the Vibrance option. And these local adjustments, I mean, as I click in and keep adding layers, I like to think of it as kind of like a paint palette that you can pick from with different options. You know, rather than being something that affects the whole photo, I can choose, you know, this one layer is going to be my lighten. This one layer is going to be my darken. You know, this one layer is going to be my vibrance. It's kind of a way to hack dodging and burning and do any kind of dodging and burning you'd want to do right here in the local adjustments with a brush with the lighten and then darken set as another one. So you have that ability here, and you know, just as I mentioned, you can just keep on stacking these layers on top of each other. There's no limit to what you do with local adjustments. And I should mention, I haven't left the develop module. I mean, we've only gone through browse, we've only gone through develop, and I've taken my photo, you know, obviously this doesn't look that good, but I can delete that very quickly. And, you know, I've taken my photo from something that was, you know, let's take a look at it. It was something kind of mundane and bland, but now it's a pretty cool photo. It's pretty stellar. It's got some cool warmth in the sky and some great detail in the rocks in front of it. And that didn't take me very long to get there. And further to that, let's say you have a couple other images that are in the same location that you want to add those same settings to. Well, you can do that easily in the film strip view just by clicking on the photo and choosing the sync option right here on the right side. That's going to sync all my settings there with this one. So, you know, there might be some cleanup. Obviously, I need to go in and get rid of this stuff, but it got me started. It's a great way to get started too. If you are editing some vacation photos and you start with one, you really like where you went, you know, just sync those settings across the board and you have a great starting point for all of your photos. So that's the overall basics of the develop module. Like I said, there's a lot of advanced stuff we can get into, but we're not going to here. Dylan, are there any questions?
Not so far, Mo. Not so far on the develop module.
Awesome, awesome. So let's jump into the, actually, before I jump into the effects module, I should mention, or I should touch on rather, how to do the HDR and pano merging. So we do have an HDR and a pano module. I'm sure some of you landscape shooters have seen that as you've been watching me and browse. So that's very, very simple to use. I'm just going to navigate to, let's navigate to this one here, a couple photos for HDR. All I need to do is choose the photos that I want to merge, click on HDR, And I like to show this after develop specifically because when it merges these photos together, I now have my develop module essentially in here to do all of my tone and color corrections that I need to do. Just like I was showing you guys in the develop module, this has merged those 3 images into one single image. It's, you know, HDR, I know you landscape shooters know how this works, so I'm not going to get into the finer details of how HDR works, but anything I need to do that I didn't develop, I can do right here in the HDR module. And then as I save that, it's going to save all of those photos into one. I can even add some more kind of some different glowy type of HDR looks. I don't really do much on the HDR front, but just know it's there. It's great. It's super fast. I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed how long that took to merge those together. I'll do that one more time. It doesn't take very long at all. You choose the photos you want to merge. It's going to merge them together rather seamlessly, and there's going to be no lag time on anything. And so similarly with our pano module there, where's my panos here? I think I have a cool one we can pull up. Let's check out this one here. Actually, I'm going to go do this one in tunnel view. So just like with HDR, I'm just going to choose my photos that I want to merge into a pano, and I'm going to choose the pano module. It's going to be super fast. It's stitching these together. I should mention that if you're shooting astrophoto or if you're kind of shooting a matrix of photos, it doesn't have to be just a straight line for a pano merge. You can have photos up top here. It can be a big matrix composite of different images in your pano series. It's going to merge those all together.
Hey Mo, real quick, just off topic a little bit. Can you show them how they can take that panorama module and just make it bigger?
Oh yeah, easy. Just right here. Well, I mean, I guess if you're on a if you're on a Mac, it's just right here.
There we go. Perfect. Thanks, Mo.
Click up there, and yeah, you pano shooters out there, you're probably going to want that quite a bit, so you can make sure your stitching is okay and everything. Last bit, if you are uploading your panos to Facebook, you can add that panoramic metadata in there so that when it uploads to Facebook, people can click it and drag it around. I don't use that ever, but I know some people think that's pretty cool. That is there for you. That's the gist of the HDR and the pano module. So I'm sorry to be cruising so fast, but we've been going for about 40 minutes here. I still got quite a bit to show you guys, so like I said, everything is being recorded. If you need me to show something over again, just ask Dylan there. It's not a problem for me. We got unlimited time blocked off here. So yeah, feel free to ask away. I'm going to jump into the effects module here. And I'm actually going to pull up a portrait because I prefer to work on portraits myself. But you landscape shooters out there, we'll get into a landscape for the layers module that you guys will think is pretty cool, I hope. So let me jump in. I think I have a cool one under headshots. Yeah, here we go. So again, I'm just in browse. I'm navigating throughout my different photos. This is all non-destructive, so any editing that I've done, I'll actually just show you guys that real fast on that last photo. Any editing that I've done that, maybe I come to my computer the next day and I think that that's terrible. Well, I can just easily come down to my reset option here and I can put that right back at the beginning. So everything I've done is non-destructive. You're not going to ruin your raw files. You can see that was a raw file there and nothing was lost from where we started at the beginning. So just a little sidetracked there, but I thought I should mention that as we move on here into some more intricate editing on the effects and the layers front. So let me grab that portrait again that I want to show off. And I'm going to come into the effects module now, right here in effects. And so this is what most of my shooting is going to be like. I do a lot of portraits, like I said, lifestyle stuff. So I feel as though this is a great example for everyone to show off these tools though. And you notice here that in my effects module, it looks very similar to the develop module. I have my local adjustments. I have my overall settings. I have presets that I can choose from that we haven't gotten into just yet, but we will. And now I also have filters. You can remember in the browse module, we had a browse option here. Well, now we're in the effects module, so we have a filters option. Effects is your effects engine. It's your digital darkroom. It's where you're going to get creative with your photo after you've fixed it in Develop and gotten it to, you know, where you want to begin getting more stylized with. So in effects, I have all my same tools, but I have more masking tools to refine those masks, to edit if I'm doing any kind of, I guess for you landscape shooters out there, if you're doing any kind of sky swaps, or maybe just want to add an effect to a certain spot in the sky. These tools are going to be very helpful at refining those masks for you so that you don't have any bleed over mountaintops or trees or anything like that. But where I like to start in the effects module is with a preset. And, you know, presets, I've seen people use presets as finishing touches, as starting points, as midway points, as just correctional things. You know, like color correcting, for example, if you're shooting with a ring light. You know, what I prefer to do is use them as starting points to kind of get me going in a direction. And then I can, what's great about the effects module is I have full control over someone else's preset or an old preset that I've made that I want to go in and then re-edit. I can do that just by adding a preset. So I'm going to be in my faded and matte collection here, and I'm going to choose the quick view browser at the top there. I'll go do that one more time so I did that kind of fast. So this little 4 square corner up here, if you click that, it's going to show you your image thumbnail in a preview with those preset filters applied. So you know, it can get you going in a nice direction there. I think I'm going to start here with this matte 3 and kind of see what that does under my overall settings. So I'm going to mention this before I get started because there are a lot of Photo RAW owners in here. There up at the top under the window menu, there is a solo mode option. I love having solo mode checked on because you can see over here on the right, it keeps everything confined and stacked on top of each other. If I turn this off and I open up these different filters, I can actually see all of them opened up at once. So I thought I would mention that before we go on. Some people really prefer to have these both open so they can kind of tweak, you know, the split tone and the color or tone enhancer at the same time. Myself, I prefer to leave them closed. So if you're wondering why yours doesn't look the same, or you're wondering how I did that, it's just in window solo mode right at the top there. And I'll just go ahead and jump in now. So the first thing that I always do when I add presets is I see what the different filters are doing to the photo. So I'm just clicking in and I'm turning them on and off just by clicking on this little orange button here. And I really like what that's doing and that split tone together. So I'm going to leave those on, but I don't really like this vignette that was chosen. And I don't even think I'm ready for that just yet. So I'm going to just knock that out. I'm just going to hit the X to remove it from the preset. And you know, maybe I want to just adjust the warmth just a tad on the sunshine filter. I can do that as well. I can even just continue stacking. So remember, we started with a preset over here. I knocked out the vignette, and I'm just going to keep stacking on top of that. I'm going to add a filter, and I'm going to add dynamic contrast right now because I love this filter. I use it on pretty much every image. And I'll turn it off and on so you can see what it does. So here's off. And here is on. And it does a lot for her shirt, for her belt buckle, jeans. It really makes everything pop. I don't really like it on the face though. Or on the background, it's kind of making it a little bit grainy, I've noticed here. So one of the great tools with the effects module is being able to select your brush just like we did over in Develop. I'm going to choose this brush, not a local adjustment brush. We're going to get into that. This masking brush over here is going to allow me to brush in or brush out this filter. that I've added, this dynamic contrast filter here. So I'm just going to make sure my brush is set to paint out. And let me turn my opacity all the way up. We don't want that too low. And I might actually turn my feather back a little bit here. And I'm just going to brush away quickly right now so that you can see. Oops, let me actually paint in that back on our hair real fast so that we can keep that on our hair. But I'm going to paint out on this top corner so that you guys can see over in my filter stack on the right here, this mask has started to appear. And I can even look at my masking view and see exactly what I've masked already. So this is great, but you know, what are you gonna do about these hairs? Well, we have this perfect brush tool up here at the top. And what this perfect brush tool is going to do is it's going to sample the colors that hit the minus sign inside of my circle. So as long as I don't hit that minus sign onto her hair or onto her blouse, it is going to paint away this effect off of everything except for her blouse. And like I said, you can't really see that because of this, how this background looks. So I'll jump to this mask view real fast so that you can see what's actually happening when I have this perfect brush on and I just brush. I don't have to spend too much time you know, masking this image. I'm going to be quick about this because this is actually the opposite of how I would apply this filter. But I wanted to show you guys that, you know, easily adding a filter or it's easy for me to remove a filter in selective areas, just like I was doing with local adjustments in Develop. But I can do this now in Effects. And I can even turn off my perfect brush, and I might just brush this off of her face as best as I can right here. And I'm gonna go back to my original view and I'll turn the dynamic contrast off and I'll turn it back on. So now you can see it's only affecting her hair and her blouse, and it's a really cool effect. This actually wouldn't be how I applied this though. I wanted to show you landscape shooters out there how you would paint that out, because you probably will be doing a lot of painting out in skies or in reverse, painting in, which is what we're gonna do right here. This is kind of an advanced feature, so I'll go as slow as I can about this, and I'm going to actually click into this mask, and you can see it right there, just like I was showing in the mask view. I'm actually going to reset this and get us back to square one to where it's applied to the whole image. Remember, white is going to reveal the filter we're adding. Black is going to conceal. So as I paint out, you know, black is going to show up inside of here. Well, what I want to actually do is, rather than paint out this effect, I want to paint in this effect. So I'm going to choose invert right here. And it's going to flip everything to black. I'll just do that again and flip it to white so you can see everything's applied to the whole image. Now it's not applied to the image. Pretty straightforward. So I'm going to come over here, make sure my brush is selected still, and I'm going to choose Paint In now. And I am just going to paint this in exactly where I want it. You know, it's great for color corrections. Especially on the landscape front, just being able to paint out filters or paint in filters just gives you a lot of flexibility and allows you just to get a lot more creative with your images. You know, a little further past just fixing it and, you know, getting it to a state that's pretty reasonably acceptable. The effects module is where you're going to take your image and make it great. And really, really stellar and stand out. So I'm not going to spend any more time on this specific filter. I'm actually going to go jump over now to a local adjustment, and I'm going to work on her face just a little bit here. So what I normally would do with a portrait is under these local adjustments, just like I was showing you guys in the develop module, I can come in and I'll make sure my local adjustment brush is selected. And I'm going to choose the magic eye fixer here. And I'm going to leave it at 100% for right now, but I am going to tone that back at the end because we don't want her to look, you'll see here, it's going to make her eyes really pop out there. And again, sorry, I'm using a magic mouse here from Apple. I'm not using a tablet or anything, so my masking skills aren't quite the best today. But as you can see, I can tone this back, and I might keep that about 25 there. And while we're here, I'm going to rename this to eyes, and I'm going to add another layer of vibrance. And I'm just going to be very super fast about this on her lips there. Just a very small little touch of vibrance there. Nothing that you would notice, because I'm going to tone it back to about 20%-ish, maybe like 15. So it's barely noticeable, but it just gives her lips a little bit of pop there. And let's go back to our fit view. And I'll turn that off, and then I'll turn off the eye adjustment, so you can see that with the eye adjustment off, with it on, it's a very subtle difference. Let me actually make it a little more so you can see what happens there. So here's off, and then with on, it just adds a little bit of detail, adds a little bit of clarity to her eyes, makes them pop a little bit more. Like I said, you'll want to be a little more refined with your masking on those eyes than I just was, but you get the overall idea. I can just keep going through these local adjustments, adding things that I want to correct in my photo. I can move these adjustment layers around. Oops, let me actually make sure I'm moving the correct one. Oops, turn that down. Come on, move up there. Oh, maybe not. There we go. We'll just do this then. We'll turn that off, and you can move the overall layers, not these local adjustments. But what I can do, as I mentioned, with dodging and burning, you know, if there's certain spots in your image that you want to kind of fix, you can do that in effects as well, just with these local adjustments. I'm going to bump this back and turn my feather way up. And I usually do this if there's like some dark spots, you know, that I kind of just want to make a little bit brighter in the image, and then I'll come back and maybe tone that back a little bit just to kind of lighten up that specific spot just a touch. Nothing super noticeable, but you can see here's where we started and here's where we got to. It's a nice stylized matted look for the photo. I'm actually going to add a vignette here as well, because I did knock that vignette out, so I want to make sure I add that vignette back. I usually add a vignette on every portrait image I'm going to shoot, whether it's going to be a strong one or just a super soft one. I pretty much always go to this one, Big Softy. It's kind of the fan favorite here. I'm going to leave it at 100% so you can see what's happening. I set it to Big Softy, and then I go immediately to this tool down here, which will allow me to set the point of the vignette, or I want the focal point to be. And so I'll just choose that and put that right there on her. And I'll turn it off and on. There's off, and then there's on. And so that is the basics of the effects module. I'm not going to get into these masking tools too much, aside from, you know, showing you how to brush in and out the filters. But just know that, you know, as you keep adding, there's no limit to how many filters you add. You can rename these to be a little more organized. You can delete these easily if you want to delete these. If you want to save this exact thing as a preset for yourself, you can do that right at the top here under the settings. You can just save settings as a preset. And why don't we just go ahead and do that right now. Michaela, Matt. And we'll set that into our faded and matte collection. And we won't save the develop settings. We'll just do the effect. Actually, we didn't even touch develop with this image, sorry. So it's only giving us the effect settings. But normally I would just save my effect settings as a preset.
Hey, Mo.
Yeah.
Just gonna interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
We have a question that's, do you have time to quickly explain the viewing the mask options on how to view your mask, the different ways you can do that?
Yeah, I'll go through it quickly. That is a very advanced, or can be, I should say, a very advanced feature. So just in here under the filter, under the settings under filters, just click this white spot here, or sorry, this square with a circle inside of it here. That will give you this white, these more advanced masking options. I know you landscape you landscape photographers out there, you're probably wondering about luminosity masks quite a bit. I'm not going to get into that at all today, but luminosity masking, you would do that right from here. You know, essentially it's just going to allow you to choose the tonal range, you know, that you want that specific filter to affect. It's going to just allow you to get a little more, you know, refined with how you add that filter there. So you can see anything that's white, it's actually affecting. That's actually a great segue. There's a photo kit going on right now from James Brandon where he covers a lot of these advanced masking features. It's the ON1 Photo Kit, creative masking for landscape photography. Dylan, if you can find a link to drop in the chat for people, that'd be great for that. But yeah, if you are wondering about those advanced masking options, there's a sneak peek teaser video on the blog from that photo kit where he actually does dive in a little bit to the luminosity masking for landscape photos. So I would definitely recommend getting to that. Dylan, if you could find that and send that to that person, that would be awesome. So that I can jump on into the next one here. Does that help a little bit?
That does help a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Kaylee just put it in the Q&A, so we're good to go now.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, you know, and with luminosity masking, I know if you are going to get into that on the landscape side, this invert, once you have your luminosity mask set, you can invert that and copy the mask and then paste it on another one. That's a very handy feature that I think James gets quite detailed with in that photo kit. So definitely check that out. Let me get out of this craziness here and get back to my browse module because we kind of went down a path there. Oops, sorry about that. Hopefully you guys can see everything that I can see here. There we go. All right, so let's get back to browse and let's jump into the layers module now for some of you landscape photographers out there. And we've been going for over an hour, so I got all day. So if you guys want to keep firing away questions, just go ahead and throw them in there. It's no problem at all. Let me jump into a cool photo for you guys. We could do a snowboarder composition here of Omar. I've done that before, but let's start with this Pacific City composition here. So a lot of the times, you know, when you're out shooting, you probably find yourself in a situation like this, where you have a subject, you have an awesome waterfront, and then you have an awesome sky in 3 different photos that you'd like to combine into one somehow. So I'm just going to, just like with HDR, just like with Pano, I'm just going to choose the photos that I want to, you know, create my composite with, and I'm going to bring those into the layers application. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I know that the Zoom conference really slows this whole process down for some reason, so I don't know why that is, but this should load up here in just about a second. But yeah, the layers module, this is really where you landscape photographers who want to swap skies, you fine art photographers, anyone doing compositions or, you know, anything with layers. Layers is your powerhouse in ON1. You know, I showed you a lot that you could do in effects to stylize those filters and to make everything really cool. This is kind of the same idea, just with layers. So I know there are a lot of new novices, I should say, to photo editing, or those who are very, very entry level to photo editing. So I'm not going to spend too much time on how layers and the theory behind layers and what layers actually does, how that works. I'm not going to spend any theory time on that. I'm just going to dive in and start editing this photo here. So if I should also mention too, for you landscape photographers, the app comes loaded with a bunch of skies and a bunch of backgrounds automatically. So, you know, if you just are looking to replace an image with a cool sky, all of these come automatically built into the app. Just kind of a cool thing that comes along extra with it. I know a lot of you landscape photographers probably are into that. So anyway, here I am in layers. This is my top layer. It's what you see on the screen. If I turn this off, you'll see my next layer, which is here. If I turn that off, you'll see my next layer, which is here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to move this layer to the bottom because I know that that's going to be my sky I want to bring in last. So I want that to be kind of the bottommost layer. This layer will actually be the main scene. So I'm going to start working on our subject, which is this. I think this is Haystack Rock, or one of the rocks nearby in Pacific City. So over here on the left, I have my masking tools. I have more than what I had in effects and in develop. Like I said, this is where you are going to do sky swaps, refine any compositing, fine art type layer stuff. So you have a plethora of masking tools to get advanced with and dive into. That's not for this webinar. So I'm going to jump in just to my brush tool again here. And like I said, I keep things very basic. I'm going to choose my brush tool. I'm going to choose paint out. I'm just going to, whoops, sorry about that. Let me actually undo that and make sure I am selected on the correct layer. So I'm just going to brush out the sky, and I am just going to brush out the front of the water, not all the water, because where I'm going to put this image in the back of the scene kind of has similar colored water you can see right there. So I don't really need to worry too much about this front just to save time. And I'm actually going to turn off these back layers so that we can get a better look at our mask, a more refined look. And I messed up on purpose there, so just wait. So yeah, just gonna make a nice cut, and then I'm actually gonna use my perfect brush when I get this in a decent spot to clean up the last little bits of it. And bracket keys again on your keyboard are going to adjust the brush size. And make sure I'm set to paint in, and I'm just gonna brush that spot right back in because I'm going to use my perfect brush around this top edge. You know, this sky is all one color, so this is perfect for the perfect brush. I'm going to choose paint out. I'm going to make sure my perfect brush is set, and I'm going to, just like we did with the dynamic contrast in the effects module, all I'm doing is just keeping this minus sign right in the center of that circle there. You can see there's the minus sign. As long as I keep that minus sign in the sky's color, that blue color, it's going to sample out and not affect any other colors. So for this spot right here, it's going to be great. I can just brush, and I should be good. I don't think I need to adjust my brush size there at all, but if I needed to, I could just adjust my brush size and pop it out that way, but it worked perfectly. Not going to get into this area with the perfect brush because these colors are very similar to what's up here, so it might bleed a little bit, but like I said, this is going on a spot in the image that is very similar, so you probably won't notice it at all. I'm now going to come up to my move tool here, and I'm going to hold shift on my keyboard and click and drag that corner to give this a more, more realistic size versus being massive. And it looks like it's a little crooked too, so I might just adjust that. I'm just holding shift and just clicking outside of the box, and I'm holding shift to keep my aspect ratio the same so that it doesn't, like jump in too far to the side or go too far to the top, for example. So let's go right about there. And the next step is I want to bring this sky from my bottom layer into this sky up top. But before I do that, I need to merge these two layers together because I've just done a cutout of this image, and it's now sitting on top of this image. So if I were to start masking, doing my cutout of the sky on this image, it wouldn't affect, the edges of this, which, yeah, that's okay, but it's going to look super fake. So we want to have a little bit of a, disparity there. So I'll show you what I mean here. I'm going to merge these together just by holding shift, and coming down here, we have different options. There's a color fill layer, delete layer, copy layer, some more advanced settings. I'm going to merge those using this tool. So now you can see this is all one layer. this is one image now that I've merged those together. Here's what's underneath. So the first thing I want to do before I even worry about cutting this sky out is I want to make sure that my aspect ratio of my clouds is okay. So I'm going to choose the move tool, or make sure I'm still on the move tool rather. And I'm going to reduce the opacity on this top layer so that I can see the horizon line on the top layer and the bottom layer. Make sure I'm clicked on the bottom layer here, move tool, and oops, sorry about that. This magic mouse is kind of driving me a little nuts today. I'm not that good with it. So I'm just going to drag this to a spot that's close to the horizon line. And I might actually make this just a little bit bigger there so that it's covering the whole image. You can see now that this image is over the target image there. But this is better. This is better for the horizon line now. It's not going to give us the clouds at the top of the sky, you know, that should be near the horizon line. So I'm going to come back to my top layer here, and I'm going to boost that opacity up to 100%. I am going to choose my gradient mask tool, just like I was choosing in the develop module at first to affect the sky. Same idea here, except for this one is going to do a cutout of the layer that I'm on, just like my brush got rid of that layer that I'm on. So you can see if I were to turn off this bottom layer, here's my top layer. You know, and here's how the mask is being affected. I can drag this down. I don't want to because I want to keep that rock in there as much as possible. And I'm going to go to maybe about here. Actually, I'm going to bring this down a little more. And I'm going to turn this back on. So you can see, here's the sky actually coming in now. And I'll actually, yeah, maybe make it there. So that's a little bit better. Okay. So we got that in a good spot, but now we lost some of our rock. So the next step would be to take our brush tool. I probably will need my perfect brush at some point. Whoops, let's make sure we're set to paint in also. I'll probably need my perfect brush at some point, but I mainly want to focus on just brushing in the main part of this rock right now. And now I'll choose my perfect brush, and I might bump this up just a tad bit there, just to give me some wiggle room with my, see now you can see it's a plus sign, not a minus sign, because I'm painting in now, not painting out. And so, yeah, this is just, especially for you landscape shooters. I mean, I haven't spent very much time at all in here, you know, making this composition of 3 images that were shot at Pacific City. You know, and like I said, you can see here the mask probably needs a little bit of work down in the front, but I'm not going to spend any time doing that. On this front, this is the basics of the layers module. You could even add a color fill layer on top of this if you wanted to maybe make it something a little, you know, maybe warm it up just right in layers. You could do something like that pretty easily. And we'll just bump that opacity down a lot. So just a quick little like sunshine glow or something, you know, nothing major, but layers gives you that, that flexibility to pretty much do anything you want to do to these photos. You know, it's just like Photoshop layers, but in my opinion, it's a lot easier to use. You know, I didn't spend an hour on YouTube trying to figure out how to do that. I chose the same tools that I've been using throughout all of ON1 Photo RAW and develop in effects, now in layers. I do have those advanced options, but I don't need to be an advanced user to know how to edit a photo good or get good quality from my edits at least. You know, I didn't touch any of these advanced tools. They can be kind of overwhelming at first if you're just diving in, but you know, this is a beginner's webinar. These are beginner steps to ON1 Photo RAW. And I basically used 2 different tools throughout this entire webinar so far, just using them in different modules with different filters and different features. So That's the heart. That's the gist. That's ON1 Photo RAW. It's a browser. It's a RAW processor. It's an effects engine. It's a layered, non-destructive workflow. I'll get into Resize in just a second as kind of our parting little nugget for you guys. There's really not much to cover on the Resize front. Are there any questions on layers before I move on, Dylan?
No, I think we're good, Mo. No questions on layers so far.
Okay. Well, I do see a question came by about the difference between the retouch brush and the eraser tool. Just quickly, eraser tool is more like a content aware, get rid of people, power lines, puddles, birds in the sky. The retouch brush is going to be more like a smudge brush. It's going to be great for portraits. And just getting rid of dust spots on the lens, things like that.
Yeah, just a little bit to add to that. So the magic eraser is going to use content aware technology, like Mo was saying, to erase areas on your photo, whereas the retouch tool is what you're going to be using when you're when you're retouching any of the smaller areas, like dust spots, like Mo was saying. So yeah, good job, Mo.
Cool. So yeah, let me jump in real fast here to, sorry, I chose my color fill layer on that and I probably should have just canceled everything. There we go. So let me jump in real fast to resize here for you guys. I think I have a preset set that'll just make this super fast. So if you guys, those of you who have been with us for quite some time, have been an ON1 customer, you know what Resize does. You've heard of genuine fractals. This is ON1 Resize. It enlarges your images without losing any quality. It's kind of your last step before printing anything. So I'll just run you through this module real fast. There's sharpening. There's tiling if you're printing on multiple different pages to do a styled look. Gallery wrap for canvas printing. I actually use this quite a bit just for, making canvases for my family and stuff. But yeah, that's all right inside of there, inside of Resize. I'll just go ahead and do a quick resize for you guys. I think I have one set. There we go. So set that, and hopefully you guys can see. You can't really see anything that's going to happen on your side because it's not going to change the image. But if I zoom in now, let's just zoom in at 50%, and we'll see what percentage we've increased it as 225%. So it's now a 30 by 20. And hopefully that renders fast enough for you guys to see that, we don't have any pixelation from where we started. I can probably go back and show you that again, but I'd rather not. There's some other things I'd like to cover before closing down. It's gotten pretty late, so I apologize. If you guys were looking for the short and sweet beginners webinar, we kind of went off on some tangents there, but that's okay. Let me jump back to browse. So the last little bit is, how do I save these images? What do I do now that I've resized my image? What do I do now that, oops, let me change that. I don't know why that started scaling. I think I hit done on accident. So, what do I do when I want to actually give this photo to a client, or what do I do when I want to put this on my website or to Facebook or to print? What do I do? So that is what our export module is for, or I should call it the export drawer rather. There's a couple different ways you can get up there. Let's first find an image. Let's just go to 5 stars. This is normally how I'm going to find my images to give my clients. And let's just choose this one here. Actually, let's choose this gorilla down here. He looks kind of cool. So I have this option down here to export. I also have an option under the file menu to export. And you also have a quick export option. So this is going to remember your most used settings or most frequently used settings and just allow you to quick export, go to that same spot. I use that quite a bit myself. So I'll open that export drawer up for you guys. It's kind of the last little bit here to the webinar. This is where you're going to add your watermark. This is where you can also do resizing. It's still going to use the resize algorithm. the Genuine Fractals algorithm to resize the photo. So you don't really need to even go into resize, which is why I didn't spend too much time on it. If you are doing a lot of intricate printing, sharpening for print, definitely go into resize. That's a great place. I just stick to the export drawer myself. I'm going to add a watermark just by turning that little drawer on. I can change the size of that watermark, maybe turn that opacity down, something like that, so no one steals my image. Put it right in the middle or down on the corner. You can do some basic sharpening here. You can do all your tiling and gallery wrap just like in Resize here, but you have grid view as well. You can make that full screen view. This is kind of how I'm saving my images. This is where I'm going to rename my images. I can change the folder location for where that's going to go. I can change the file type. If it's a PSD file, you'll probably want to change that to JPEG or something else to get that to your website. So you can change color spaces as well. It looks like I was in Adobe RGB. It should pick up automatically what the color space is of the image, or if you have it set in the preferences, rather, it should automatically pick up that in ON1 Photo RAW. So that's kind of the basics getting started. Once I hit export, it's going to save this photo as New Bella 7. Obviously we might want to change that to Gorilla and then maybe not add a serial number. But if you're exporting a sequence of photos, this is a great way, just like the import was, to add keywords to things. The export option is a great way to rename things to, or put them in a folder even to get them to your website quicker, or to get them to your clients quicker. I export everything to a specific final photos folder. And then even from there, I have a folder that's clients folder or shared to the web folder. So I have even more levels of that. But that's the basics of ON1 Photo RAW 2018. There's so much more we could have gotten into, and there's, like the one customer pointed out, all the luminosity masks and advanced masks that are in there. There is a ton you can get into, but it's very easy to get started and to create great images very quickly. There's a ton of training on our website as well, on our YouTube channel. So if you are interested in finding out more about those advanced features, or maybe about how to edit portraits more specifically, or I think Dylan just made a great action sports, action photography video for us. So we have tons of training just on our website, on our Facebook page, on our YouTube. It's free for you. Check it out. That's pretty much all I have for you guys today. So before I go, Dylan, are there any final questions on anything?
Yeah, just real quick question. Can you just show a couple of the ways that you can add denoising onto a photo?
Oh, denoising.
Just grab that. Yeah, just grab a photo and set up develop.
Yeah, probably I don't like to do this too much.
And then details, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is a great image to show this on, but if you are interested in noise reduction, you'll notice what's happening when I hit my option key on my keyboard and adjust the, so I'm holding my option key, and that's why it's changing it to black and white. So it's allowing me to see, I don't know if you can see that on your end, their face is it's adjusting that threshold. Maybe the color one's better example. Yeah, here we go. So this is adjusting the threshold of where that noise is going to be applied. So I hope that makes sense to you guys.
I think that's perfect. I think they were just looking where they could find it. Yeah, where they could find it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So just use the details pane under develop, and that's pretty much where you're going to do all that type of stuff.
Also, just real quick, there's also noise reduction inside of effects. You can add it as a filter. So if you do need, right there.
Where am I going? There we go. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So this will probably be where you want to go if you do want to get sort of intense with the noise reduction, but thanks, Mo.
No problem. I don't use the noise reduction too much here. I do use it quite a bit in develop for color noise, just like I was kind of showing you here. This was with a ring light, as you can see, and there's sometimes some color noise that can come around, but yeah, so that's ON1 Photo RAW. If you do have any other questions, feel free to email me directly, jmm@on1.com. J. Michael Morelli, just my initials, jmm@on1.com. I'm going to go ahead and close things down. So thank you so much for being here. Dylan, thank you for your help with everything. And see you guys later. Have a great Thursday night.